Thank you, Chairman Webster and Ranking Member Huffman. I'd like to thank the House Committee for the opportunity to testify before you today. My name is Philip Griffitt Jr., but most folks call me Griff. I'm a fifth-generation Bay County native. I was born and raised in Panama City Beach. I was appointed by Governor Rick Scott to fill a vacant commission seat in June of 2016 and subsequently won the election later that year. I'm proud to call Bay County home, and I'm humbled to serve the citizens of Bay County as their commissioner. I'm here today before you to speak in favor of H.R. 2947, the Strengthening Coastal Communities Act, introduced by Representative Neil Dunn. The legislation implements the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recommendations for the San Andrew Complex P31 and P31P units of the Coastal Barrier Resources System. As the committee is aware, Dr. Dunn's legislation corrects a mistake made long ago with a mapping error. In 1990, when the COBRA maps were drawn for Bay County, an otherwise protected area, the OPA map, was created to include the San Andrew State Recreation Area. This state park includes several miles of undeveloped beachfront property along the Gulf of Mexico. The mapper used section lines to create the western and northern boundaries of that OPA map. This imprecise method included private property developed in that OPA area. Under COBRA, this OPA map, or OPA map, should have been limited to undeveloped conservation areas such as national wildlife refuges, national parks and seashores, state parks, military bases, and conservation lands owned by private organizations. Although Bay County Unit P31P correctly included the San Andrew State Park to the south on the Gulf of Mexico, it incorrectly contains portions of an existing mobile home and RV subdivision called Venture Out. On the west and in approximately an 80-acre upland parcel located to the north that is only over 1 mile away from the beach and developed for residential use. The 80-acre residential area contains 3 subdivisions: Bonefish Point, which is approved for 18 lots, Finisterre subdivision is approved for 73 lots, and Martinique subdivision is approved for 138 lots. There are currently 89 homes constructed in this area, with 5 under construction. Each home is on paved roads with public water and sewer utilities, and police and fire protection is provided by Bay County. There were single-family homes constructed on this Grand Lagoon area as far back as 1955. The area of the Finisterre subdivision was subject to an agreement between adjacent landowners to connect roads, water, sewer, to a larger planned unit development or development of regional impact called Bay Point in 1976. These areas are not on a coastal barrier island. As a lifelong resident of the area, I can tell you this area is not prone to flooding. Therefore, the legislation poses little risk to the taxpayers. It should be noted that when these subdivisions were originally approved, they were not included in the 1996 FEMA maps. FEMA modifications to the flood maps, however, included most of the residential lots in these flood zones. As banks began insisting on flood insurance, owners in the OPA maps were compelled to purchase private insurance for the lack of access to the National Flood Insurance Program. Private insurance in this area can cost upwards of $50,000 a year for a house, which adversely affects not only people's financial security, but the local tax base as well. In fact, numerous families have struggled to keep their homes as a result of the mapping error in Unit P31P. To all the members today, I cannot overstate how fixing this mapping error in Unit P31P is a real-life pocketbook issue for the residents in this corner of Bay County. Enacting H.R. 2947 will also improve the provisions of public utilities, raise property values, and for these reasons, Bay County respectfully requests that the members of this committee support H.R. 2947. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we go to questions of the members, starting with myself. I'll yield myself 5 minutes. I'd like to yield that time to Mr. Dunn. Dr. Dunn, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If I could direct our question to Director Fraser again. Once this legislation is enacted, how quickly will the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service be able to publish the new maps, and what level of engagement with the local community will the service undertake to explain the forthcoming changes to the residents?
Congressman, if the legislation is adopted and signed into law, it'll take the Fish and Wildlife Service about 1 week to post the revised map on our public website. There's already been a great deal of public engagement in the draft map and engaging review and comment, but we'd be happy to also provide any assistance to help the local community understand the revisions that have been made.
Thank you very much. We'll assist you in that. Director Fraser, I've also introduced another bill regarding the Coastal Barrier Resources System, which addresses the boundaries in Cape San Blas, Florida. Similar to the circumstances we've discussed here today, privately owned, residentially developed lands are included in the maps, and the residents of Cape San Blas are facing very real economic hardship as a result. Enacting my legislation, H.R. 4091, would give hope to that community that has faced a great deal of economic headwinds in recent years. As the map makers, so to speak, for the COBRA system, could you share with me how the service would respond to direction from Congress on how to implement the maps for the system in Cape San Blas?
Congressman, the Fish and Wildlife Service has submitted to Congress a comprehensively revised map for that unit. But if your legislation were to be adopted, then obviously we would be following that direction from Congress as well. We have not taken a position, though, because it was not the subject of this hearing. I don't have an administration position on your bill at this point in time.
That's excellent, but I understand that, if we enact H.R. 4091, it's then you'll follow that map. Thank you very much, Director Fraser, and I yield back.